Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of The Designated Designer, a podcast about design where curiosity is the compass, creativity lights the way, and transformation is just part of the trip. I'm your host, Jennifer Stank, your brand spirit guide for this weird, wild, and wonderful ride where together we navigate our creative existence in today's modern and conventional world. I am so excited to be here this week with you guys. I have a very special guest with me. His name's Xander, and I'm really excited for you guys to kind of hear us chat a little bit about design. Xander and I actually attended the same university. Shout out to Kutztown, Golden Bear for life. I believe that Xander was a grade or two below me, if I'm not mistaken. What year did you graduate?
It's 2021, so...
Okay.
Yeah,
all right, so 2 years. Yeah, I graduated 2019, so we were at university for a brief period of time together. We both have a really robust knowledge in design, and I'm really excited to be able to have a conversation with Xander today. So without further ado, Xander, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so my name's Xander, short for Alexander. I'm an illustrator based in Lancaster, PA. So primarily, I would say I am both a illustrator and a graphic designer. I also dabble in web design, animation, and videography. So I'm primarily a free agent as far as my freelance goes, but I also run a small creative agency where I manage other freelancers to take on some larger projects. So we have a lot of different things we do. One of the things I'm really proud to say I worked on is this brand, Screaming Sasquatch Gear. So it is a cryptid-themed apparel brand based in North Carolina. I'm really good friends with the guy who runs it. His name's Keith. Really passionate guy who just loves Bigfoot. He's always wanted to put together an actual brand like based off of that, which I think is really cool. So I got to have the creative reins with that and do all these cool, neat illustrations that go on t-shirt backs of Sasquatch and, you know, the Mothman, Yeti, other cryptids. We're working on a Loch Ness Monster right now. So I do a lot of really fun client work, I would say. I do a lot of stuff for craft beer. I do stuff for, you know, cannabis and THC. I do a lot of stuff for pretty much everything, skateboarding, EDM music, anything that really revolves like lots of really illustrative work is the kind of clients I usually get. That's a little brief introduction about me.
Wow, that is super cool. I actually didn't know like the extent of kind of the brands that you work for. That is like the best kind of work for a graphic designer. That's so cool. So today we have a pretty special topic to talk about. Xander actually came to me with the idea for this topic, which I've kind of tiptoed around the subject a little bit in my own personal work, but I never really thought about it to actually kind of dig a little bit deeper into it. And I was really excited when he came to me with the idea and, you know, to be on the podcast and kind of chat a little bit more about it, because I think it's something that's super important that a lot of people in our industry can kind of relate to. And it really can kind of change the game for you, your workflow, and kind of helping set you apart as far as competition is concerned. So do you want to kind of give us an intro as to what you want to talk about today?
Yeah, so I recently read a book with my work, actually, that really inspired me as far as my own freelance work and just my life in general goes. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality. It's by Will Guidara, who is a 3-star Michelin chef who actually went on to literally be a public spokesman after he wrote this book just about this whole concept of giving people more than they expect and really delivering on more than what clients or customers or guests, whatever field you're in, are looking for. And it really goes beyond just the restaurant industry. It can really apply, I think, to any field. And in our field of graphic design, we have a lot of clients that have expectations in mind, and part of a lot of what we do is helping translate that concept that they might have a rough idea or a more defined idea out and fleshing it out. But one of the things I think that we can do to go beyond that is just give them extra things sometimes, or just go beyond to show that we really care. And, you know, that can show itself in a lot of different ways. Like, I work at a vinyl wrap shop, and one of the things we started doing recently is we started putting little air fresheners with our logo and our website in people's cars. It's just a nice little thing. People weren't expecting that. We were only working on the outside of their cars, but it's like, oh, whoa, look, they just did that. Our boss has been going around and giving donuts to some of our clients, just bringing donuts and coffee, just showing up randomly on a morning morning. It's just fun little stuff like that. So I really kind of wanted to explore some of the ways that we can do that. And I hope that to you viewers, you can be inspired and take some notes, and maybe this will kind of get your gears turning for how you can apply that to your work.
Yeah, absolutely. I really love this, and I'm so excited to kind of talk a little bit more about this topic. Also, I'm so happy to hear that there is a wrap shop somewhere in Pennsylvania that's putting air fresheners in cars, because I worked at 2 wrap shops locally. I'm kind of on eastern side of Pennsylvania. I worked at 2 wrap shops, and I begged the owners nonstop. Like, I was so annoying about it. I was like, can we design little air fresheners and put them in the car so when the client picks it up, it's like an extra special little thing. Like, oh wow, they took the time to do this, you know? And I think that it's really important to be able to do those things, and they just never wanted to hear it. You know, they didn't want to be bothered with it. So it's really nice to hear that somebody out there was actually able to talk a shop into kind of doing that, because I think it is just a special little touch. It makes them feel special. It makes them feel like you're kind of thinking about them and taking care of them. And that really goes a long way, because when your client is really well taken care of, they're gonna tell your friends about you. Like, I just had an instance where someone came to me and was looking for like vehicle graphics just this week, and I got them on the phone and I start talking about them. We had our initial inquiry and everything, and I asked them about, you know, where did you hear about me? And they mentioned that my one client that I'm working for right now was saying about how amazing Jen is, and you have to use Jen. Like, don't use anybody else but Jen, because I do take steps as far as like the onboarding phase and working with the client and then offboarding them. Like, I'm always trying to put these little things into my process to make it feel like I am going the extra mile, that they are getting this extra special, you know, addition to the project or whatever. Not to put yourself out. You know, you don't ever want to put yourself out or, you know, do more work than you're being compensated for. But if it's something that really doesn't take you a lot of time at all, but it's something really special that's going to show your client that you care, that kind of stuff's really important. So I'm really excited to kind of get into this topic today.
Yeah. Yeah, and exactly. Kind of going off of what you said, with you don't want to make it something where you're almost kind of cutting into your time or your money and your resources to do, but you want to do it in ways that are still like mindful and it leaves a good impression. And that's kind of like, I love to say, like, cheap thrills are sometimes the best. There's a chapter in this book actually where he talked about it's really just paying attention to the context clues of what some of these clients and some of these people that are coming into your business are talking about, and some of the things that, like, I would call it ethical eavesdropping. Here's an example. So 2 examples of ethical eavesdropping. So basically, Will in this book was saying that he overheard a customer who was about to come into the restaurant talking about how his trip to New York, this is where it takes place, was great, and how he went to see the Empire State Building and a Broadway show, and he did everything. He did everything that people do when they come to New York, but he said the only thing he didn't do, and this was his last night, is that he never went and got a hot dog off the street. He was like, you know, maybe next time, and it just kind of like, I did everything, but I didn't do that. So Will literally sends one of his dishwashers or something like that to go across the street and to get a hot dog from the stand, and they brought it back in, and then they like cut it up all nicely and made like a pristine little presentation of a freaking $1 hot dog from a stand, and just like served it like it was caviar, like, to the guy. And that is a story that this guy will tell probably the rest of his life. I mean, he still DMs Will on Instagram, and always he says, yeah, that's my favorite campfire story. It's just context, like, clues and kind of like knowing your surroundings. And yeah, so I call it ethical eavesdropping, because you're kind of just like listening into some of the things that like would really get that customer to tick. You know, so the other example, this is in real life. This was actually at my work. One of our sales reps, and he's actually just kind of a friend of mine. Even outside of work, we still talk. He's just a really cool guy, very personal, very polite, and people just like working with him. He went to a prospect, like a potential client that we're really looking to sell some wraps to, and he noticed that the owner was holding a little Maltipoo dog. So they were having a conversation. The owner was just carrying around this little dog with him. So he was like, Xander, I want you to draw that dog. And I was like, okay. And then, of course, the owner said, we don't want to cut into time. Can you just make something with AI? I was like, okay, I'll be quick. Or I think I actually just went on Adobe Stock and downloaded that dog. I'm surprised they had a Maltipoo. They had one vector illustration of a Maltipoo. I downloaded it. He figured out the dog's name was Walter because he overheard them talking to somebody else about it. So we made a cute little sticker. We called it Walter, and the owner, I mean, he was ecstatic. I mean, they brought in like 50 Walter stickers, gave them to everybody. People took them home, brought them to I mean, that made everybody in that office's day, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna get that client. So it's just like,
Right.
but even if we don't, they're probably still gonna remember us. You know what I mean? It's just stuff like that. I mean, when I worked at Disney World, when you did something like that for a guest, they would call that a magical moment. And actually, another thing is, you and I, Jen, are both very early, me especially early in our freelance and our creative agency journey. But eventually, the idea of having employees is definitely something that down the line might be a thing. I think for me, especially, I have contractors, I have freelancers that work under me, and that could become more of a regular thing. Creating an unreasonable hospitality incentive, creating a kind of system that almost rewards them for going out of their way for clients, similar to the magical moment system at Disney. And at my work, we actually have a little unreasonable hospitality group chat on Microsoft Teams of just like, how are we doing that? How are we going out of our way to do that? And we kind of incorporated that into our company culture. So it's just a really cool thing.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I really think because my one friend actually worked at St. Luke's for a period of time as she was doing her studies. She went to be an x-ray tech. So she was doing like on the job training and internship type stuff. And she was at St. Luke's for a period of time. And they would do this thing. I forget the specific name of it. And she's going to remind me as soon as she hears this episode. But it was basically like when you would see somebody go out of their way to help a coworker or go above and beyond or do something spectacular, they could kind of like vote together on it. Like this person went out of their way and did this special thing. And at the end of the month, they would be put up on a board, like their picture would be put up on the board, and it would be like the employee of the month kind of thing, except it was more like a magic moment type name.
Hmm.
And it was just a little thing to be like, thanks for going above and beyond. And they get like a little gift card to Dunkin' or Starbucks or whatever it was, just for going above and beyond and doing that. And I think those really are the moments that people, not even clients, people in general are going to remember you way more. And like the hot dog story, I think that is legendary. That really is going to be a story that guy tells for the rest of his life. That moment he's going to hold in his heart forever. He's always going to remember the people that did it. He's always going to remember that restaurant, and I think that those are the moments, because now you got to remember, we are on this weird uptick with AI, and AI is just speeding everything up. It's like dumping gas on a fire. Everything's moving so much faster. So many more brand strategists are popping up all over online. And now as creatives, we're kind of faced with this new world of, how do we stand out? How do we make ourselves different? What can we do that the vast majority isn't doing? And it's more than just visuals. Like if your logo stands out, that's fantastic. It should. But we're getting to a point where that's not really enough anymore. People want personal touch. They want connection. They want humanness in this weird AI robotic world that we're kind of in, this technological revolution that we're right in the middle of. And I think people really are looking for that personal touch, because a lot of times, like, it's funny that you say about the unreasonable hospitality and just kind of having that personal touch to everything. The one client that I was looking to get, they came and found me. They were from Chicago, like center city, heart of city, Chicago. And they reached out to me. They wanted me to do branding. And I saw the inquiry come in. I was still on Dribble at the time. And when I had my first call with them, I was like, how the hell did you guys find me? Like, I'm so new in my business. Like, I'm so tiny. I'm so small. And you're from the heart of the city of Chicago. Like, how did you find me? And they said they were online, like looking for designers, and they did such an insane search. Like, they were spending months looking for the right designer. And they had stumbled across my Twitch, because I was trying to like Twitch stream my art at the time. And I would like record videos of me just like putting together a vehicle layout or doing whatever. And they found those videos and they were like, you were one of the only designers I actually saw video content of you working in real time. And it made me more human. It made me more approachable. It was that extra step, that thing that kind of sets you apart from the others. And I think that doing that kind of stuff really is important. People, they don't want products anymore. They want the person that's actually the one selling them. They want your core beliefs. They want your mission, the values that you stand for. And I think that it's really cool that we're kind of starting to see this. And I think that unreasonable hospitality, incorporating that into our businesses is really going to help add to that even more so.
Yeah, especially as it becomes easier for AI to replicate still imagery, and obviously it's still kind of struggling to put together things like hands and whatnot. And thank God it can't do very good vectors. Yeah, it kind of is getting to the point where, if people want a product, there's a lot of easy tools that people can use to kind of botch together something if they need something quick. And those aren't even really the clients that you want to begin with, because I feel like, if through my experience, the only clients I've ever lost to AI were some of the most tough clients that, to be honest, didn't even really know what they wanted and were always kind of lowballing and things like that. But you have to learn to work with people, but at the same time, it's almost kind of relieving knowing that the people who want that connection and want the brand to feel more human haven't even blinked an eye. But a part of our obligation as designers is to keep that ball rolling, is to kind of always find new ways to stand out, because you're right, it is going to get to a point where a lot of things are just going to be automated, and it's going to be a lot easier. There might be typography tools that are AI based. There might be machine learning based vector tools where you can create shapes based off of certain commands and whatnot. Based off of a prompt, people might even be able to make an entire flyer in a couple seconds, and that might be a couple years away. So if people are going to be able to just do that on their own, to be able to stand out, I think that we definitely need to keep that touch, that human touch. So
absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. So I think I'm going to segue a little bit here and kind of talk through my overall process, because I don't think I ever actually shared my entire client process on this podcast. And I think now would be a great time to kind of do that, so you guys can kind of see a little bit into how I manage my clients now, because it has changed drastically since when I started my business, and I'm always improving it. And some of the things that I added into my process that kind of go with that unreasonable hospitality idea. So whenever I have a client that's interested in working with me, I always start with an inquiry form. So if they find me and they reach out via email or DM, I always direct them to fill out like a project request form. And the reason why I always have them start there is because that way I can gather any important information I need up front, like email or contact information, what it is specifically that they're looking for. Once they fill out the form, that sends a job ticket to my project management software, which I use Notion. I love Notion. Notion is amazing. It's changed my life. So once they fill out the form, it automatically generates a lead card in my project management software. Then it assigns me a task to follow up with that lead and all of the other necessary things that I'm going to need to do to convert that lead. This is something new that I added just for my own sake, because the way that I was doing it before was kind of like just trying to use everything in like a project area, but sometimes leads don't go live. Sometimes you get an inquiry, but then they're out of budget or the timeline doesn't line up. So I really wanted a way that I can either track what leads are going live, what leads aren't, how many conversions am I really getting, and if they aren't going live, like what was the reason? Was it budget? Was it timeline? Was it just not the right fit? So I kind of do all those things in the background just for my own sake of keeping myself organized in my business. And then once a job does go live, I start to move that into the project area where I'm doing things like prepping their contract. I always like to have my clients sign a contract, so not only am I protected, but they can feel safe knowing, when I pay a pretty hefty deposit, because some of these projects end up being like on the $6,000 to $7,000 end of the spectrum, which would mean like a $2,000 deposit. They want to feel safe knowing, like, once I pay this deposit, which is a pretty penny, I know I'm still going to be getting deliverables. So it not just eases my mind, it also eases my client's mind. So they sign the contract, they pay the deposit, approve estimates, all that kind of onboarding stuff. The entire time I'm going through that kind of stuff is via email, and I'm checking off this little to-do list. I don't know why I found, but clients really have been more receptive if I like make a bulleted list of tasks and usually assign it with like an emoji, like the number emojis where it's like the 1, 2, 3. If I assign like numbers and checkboxes to the tasks in the email, they fly through it so much faster than if I were to type out a paragraph. So what I start doing is in the email as I'm going through my onboarding, I'm kind of checking that off and using the strike through to show them like what we got done and what we have left. And then once I move them through that initial like inquiry acquisition phase and it's going into the official onboarding phase, that's kind of done through email. And then I move them in to their own personalized custom client portal. This is an excellent example of the Unreasonable Hospitality. This is an add-on that I added on once I really started to take my business seriously. And I got the idea from a lot of great creative legends like Abby Connick, CJ Colley, Brands by Robin. A lot of those like really awesome creatives in the industry use client portals. And I was participating in these like designer boss summits early on in my business to kind of educate myself a little bit. And through watching them, everybody was kind of talking about these client portals. And I was like, you know, what is this? Like, I've never heard of a client portal. I don't know what these are or what they do. It's just essentially a place where you and your client can communicate with everything regarding the project. There's things in there like to-do lists, there's databases. I made these little project cards so they can see all of their estimates. They can see any outstanding balance. The link to their invoice is right there in the client portal. So if they want to make a payment, they can get there in 2 clicks or less. So I really do these things to kind of show them like, here's where we're at, here's where we're going. It's very collaborative. It's very like team oriented. It kind of feels like we're working together on the same team by using these client portals. And I think that's a really awesome way to kind of showcase how I'm taking an extra step to make my clients feel like they're a part of the process. I think when your client feels like they're a part of the process, it's so much better overall. It's showing that you have that extra touch. It's showing that you have that extra level of care. And it's really important for them to feel like they're a part of the process. I feel like a lot of times in our industry, we can kind of fall short, whether it's in an agency or whether, you know, we're just starting out on our own, where designers kind of have this weird mentality like, oh, the client doesn't know anything. You know, the client doesn't know anything about design and we know what's best. So we're just going to design over them. And it doesn't matter their input because they don't know what they're talking about. You know, I've actually heard it talked about that way at some of the places I worked. And I never really aligned with that thinking because nobody knows the client's business better than your client. That's their baby. That they started it. If they didn't start it, they inherited it in the family. They know that business better than anyone. And that knowledge is vital to the branding process or whatever it is that we're helping this client with. So I really want it to feel as collaborative as possible and just kind of give them that extra level of care. Then from there, I go into all of the regular working stuff, you know, designs, revisions, all the kind of stuff that we're used to. And then as part of the offboarding phase, what I like to do is getting them to sign an artwork approval form. I start getting them offboarded, their final balance is due. And then at the very end, when the files are transferred over, I give them an opportunity to fill out a completion survey. This is really, really helpful for me because it lets me see how did you feel about the overall process? If you could change anything, what would you recommend? You know, just kind of doing a deep dive into how they felt about the overall process. And then if they complete the project completion survey, I give them 10% off their next order. And then I also have it so if they leave me a Google review, they can get 10% off of their next order. And the next step for me is going to be gamifying the client portals. So that way I can give my clients these little fun incentives, whether it's leaving a Google review or filling out a project survey that they can get 10% off their next order, or if they refer a friend, maybe it's 20% off the next order or whatever it is. And then once they complete these little objectives, I want to have it so that they can see their rewards right in the client portal and like redeem them. So that's going to be something that I'm going to start to try to implement to kind of go that extra mile. Unreasonable Hospitality, kind of gamify it a little bit, show them that they can do these little rewards or little surveys or whatever to get like a certain percentage off the next order. That way it entices them to want to order something else. And they also feel really special because they're getting a discount and everybody loves discounts. So that's kind of one of the ways I'm incorporating into my process, kind of going that extra mile. Eventually, I do log all of my clients like brand birthdays. So whenever I like launch a brand for a client, I write down the date, and at the next year I always like to send an email wishing them a happy brand birthday, just to kind of go that extra mile, show them that I care. And as my business starts to like stabilize where I can focus more time on this kind of stuff, I want to send out like little goodie bags in the mail, like whether it's a sticker pack or whatever it is that's on brand for the client, with maybe some goodies or candies or whatever. I want to be able to kind of send these little birthday gifts in the mail to go that extra mile and show them that I care and I'm thinking about them all throughout the year, because that kind of stuff really does come back around.
Wow. I mean, what's the name of this software, by the way?
Notion. Notion
Okay.
is amazing. I will teach you everything I know about Notion. It's amazing.
Yeah, a lot to unpack here. That is awesome. I did not know that, like, because a client portal is something like, one, it makes it really user friendly for the client, and two, it's really like I always say, make it like McDonald's, like make it like they're just ordering at a kiosk at a restaurant or something like that. As long as the ice cream machine is working, because that's important. But like in this metaphor situation, but like it's literally making it so much easier for them to kind of see. And like you said, like it makes it feel like a collaborative process. And one of my takeaways from that was that it kind of sounds like it eases that gap that between the designer and the client. Like it seems like it makes it less of you're doing this thing in your own space and you're just delivering a product, more of like it's collaborative. It's like when a chef cooks right in front of you at the restaurant. It's transparency, and that shows confidence, and also having the contract to save your own ass. That's definitely important. Yeah, great stuff there. I didn't even think about the coupons. Like I actually was gonna. I think the one time I gave one of my clients a Chick-fil-A gift card, which was great, but like I think the coupons are definitely a good idea, and creating like a rewards system, like when you go to Michael's or you go to TJ Maxx or wherever, you get rewards or cash back or whatever back on your purchases. That incentivizes the heck out of people. People want to keep going with you if it's worthwhile and you're getting more out of that. So that's, yeah, I'm taking a bunch of mental notes here. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
you already
absolutely.
sold me. Yeah, you already sold me on switching from Adobe to Affinity, which I'm actually about to do, by the way.
Oh
Uh,
my gosh, I'm so on the fence because like my heart wants to switch so bad because it is so expensive to stay with Adobe, but it's like every day that I do my workflow, from using Adobe Sign to get my contract signed, and then Adobe Fonts, you know what I mean? Like there's all these back end things, because I was initially looking into Affinity, and it seems like they have a designer, which is like Illustrator. They have like a photo editing, which is like Photoshop, and they have a publisher, which is like InDesign. So they
okay.
have the three big meat and potatoes. But then in the back end, where it's like you have Adobe Fonts and it syncs across your stuff, and you have Adobe Cloud, if some people out there have Adobe Cloud, where that's how they're linking their files, all of your links
Acrobat.
are gonna break. You know what I mean? Like it's the tiny like back end stuff that I'm just
Mhm.
kind of like, I don't know how far along Affinity is with that kind of stuff, because that's going to be make or break for me. Like if I lose all of my fonts, you know what I mean? I don't really know. So that I'm torn. Like my heart wants to go, but now I'm scared to jump. Like
I know. It's like it's not quite there yet as far as all that
yeah.
other integration goes. Like, I mean, I use Acrobat for opening all my PDFs and redacting,
Mhm.
pressing PDFs and all that stuff. Like, it's such a great tool. And I'm like, okay, so here's what you should do, Jen. Is you should cheat the system, all right? You should just get Lightroom, only Lightroom for like, what is it, like $6 a month? And then you
Yep.
get access to your Behance and you get access to Acrobat. Don't tell Adobe I'm saying all this. And you still have all the benefits. You get to use fonts and all that stuff, even though you probably wait, if you have Adobe fonts, they download to your computer, right? They're
Yes,
not
you
just they're
can.
not just they are native to your computer, like the TTF, or do you have a Mac or a PC?
So I'm actually on PC.
Yeah, yeah,
I
I
don't
am
know.
PC too.
Yeah, I don't know why I chose this life. It's really hard, but at
Uh,
least it's rewarding sometimes. Like,
Yeah, yeah. So you still have all all of your fonts as a TTF in your computer. So I'm just
yes.
saying, it's the bare minimum package that you have. You still are connected to Adobe Land, but you can use, like you said, the meat and potatoes with Affinity. And I haven't even looked at their UI yet, and I feel like I want to maybe do a trial just to see what working in them is like.
Yeah. See, the thing that
Yeah.
concerns me is like if I'm designing a vehicle wrap in Affinity, okay,
Yeah.
and I have a client that's getting it installed in California, and they take these files to a wrap shop, the probability of the wrap shop having an Illustrator versus Affinity is gonna be like, I don't know the cross compatibility either.
Mm.
That's another big thing, because Adobe has dominated the industry as far as like industry standards. So if I'm prepping logo files and they're Affinity native, you know, how usable is that going to be for my client? That's the other big kicker that I'm like, I don't really know. My heart wants to go Affinity. Like, if you can keep pushing forward and start to like carve away in the industry, that now it's more like a 50-50, I'm all for it. But right now I still feel like Adobe has a really large foothold as far as industry standards. So I'm nervous about it, but it's like, I want to experience this. I want to experiment. Like, I want to see how like compatible these files are with being able to be printed. You know, can they take an Affinity PDF to a wrap shop, and will they be able to open it in Illustrator and modify it if need be to panel it? You know what I mean? So just really, really interested to kind of see where it goes, but I'm excited about it. I hope I'm not scared forever, because I really want to try it, but you'll have to let me know your
Yeah.
experience.
One more thing to add to that tangent is I'm hoping that they have like a just save as or export as Adobe as an AI file option on
They don't.
Affinity. They don't? Ah,
No,
that's a
because
problem.
I looked that up when I start doing my initial research. I was like, I'm ready to go yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was looking it up, and they were essentially saying that it not only is not compatible, but if you are to open an Illustrator file in Affinity, it corrupts that file. So you have to make copies. It will
Wow.
corrupt it. You can't go back once you convert it over.
That's terrible.
Which,
Like I have Clip Studio Paint for illustration. You can literally save PSD files in it. Like
right,
you can actually, they used to have like for the brushes, it used to be their own native SUT file, and now you can actually it's compatible with ABR files. So you can literally use like brush files from Photoshop in it. It's
right.
basically like if you're an illustrator, like it's literally $50 for a perpetual license. I've been using it since I was 15. But unfortunately there isn't anything like that for vector stuff yet, other than like if you're old school and you use GIMP or Corel Draw or something like that. There's some of the
Ugh.
people swear by that, but I don't know. I almost worked at a shop in Florida the one time that they were like, "Yeah, we don't use Illustrator here. It's all Corel Draw." I was like, "At all? Like you don't use anything else? Like, are you sure?" Like, okay. But yeah, so I'll have to look into that. I didn't know it corrupted the files. That's very concerning. So,
Yeah, I
uh,
know. And that's the thing, is like, if you don't know you're doing that and you run through all of your Illustrator files and you're converting them over, and then it's like you don't have backup copies, that's a really uncomfortable place to be. So there's definitely a lot more research that I want to do on it before like I go for it, but I definitely want to try. I think it's really important to stay diverse, and things are always changing. So it's like I always want to kind of stay on top of the trends as far as software is concerned. I'll never stay on top of design trends because I think they're stupid. I think you should always design with your heart, no matter what season we're in. But as far as software, it is kind of important to be mindful. To get back to our original topic a little bit, though, let's talk a little bit more about Notion. My first year in business, I spent a lot of time in Notion in my systems and everything, because I really did want to focus on making this really feel like a seamless experience for my clients. Because not only are things like going the extra mile and sending them little gifts and goodie bags and rewards going to make them feel nice and rosy and cozy, it's also really important to make sure your entire process as a whole is going to be as seamless as possible. And I really started to do a deep dive into how branding plays a role in this, and how what we do as brand strategists directly affects the way that audiences view our clients' businesses. And as I sat down and I was like, there's more to branding than just being disruptive. There's companies out there and they're like, disruptive branding is everything, and that's all you need, and you're going to make millions of dollars if your brand's disruptive, period, end of it. That's not all that there is. There's so much more depth to that, because as disruptive brands start to overpopulate markets, it's no longer going to be enough to be disruptive. There's got to be more. And I start banging my head against a wall over all this, and I was just like, there's more to this picture than what meets the eye. And I really started to focus on like what makes branding so special. Why is branding so crucial to businesses' success? And it's not just being disruptive. I mean, being disruptive helps because it gets your client in the door. And I started to think of it as this like visual metaphor in my head. And I thought about a shopping mall, like a classic 1980s shopping mall, when you would go to the mall in the early 2000s on a Friday night with your friends and run around and stuff like that. And having disruptive branding gets your client through the door of the store. But the remainder of everything else they're going to experience, whether they buy a product off of the shelf or not, is going to be how they navigate your store. Once they get through the door, that's the first part, catching their attention with the disruptive branding. But beyond that, once you get them through the door, is it a confusing maze? Are they going to get scared and walk away? Or is there going to be signs throughout the store like, hey, come check this out. Hey, there's a sale over here. Hey, we got free samples in the back. What is going to entice the client to move throughout your store in the way that you want them to, and eventually buy a product off of the shelf? And the way I started to kind of think about this with branding is it's no different. When a client lands on your webpage or finds you on social media or however they get through the door of your store, how are you going to navigate them through the rest of their journey in order to get to the end goal, which is working with you? And these are going to be things like your website is going to have call to actions, whether it's check out my work or work with me or fill out a form. And then that form takes them into the rest of the user loop to be able to work with you. So I kind of started to look at it from that lens. And when I did, I understood the importance of my systems. And that's where I really wanted to start to focus on building out Notion. And I kind of did this in a way where when a client wants to work with me, it naturally flows from the inquiry to the onboarding process, to the working process, to the offboarding process, to the post-offboarding process. All of this stuff turns naturally within my client portal, and I spent a lot of time and attention trying to dial it in as much as possible, because the second your client experiences a hiccup, the second that they have a thought where it's like, okay, where do we go next? You're starting to lose that brand trust. If it turns naturally and you're getting them through this entire process where every step of the way they always know where they are and what's next, it becomes a seamless process. And that really helps to kind of differentiate you from competition. It helps to leave a really great impression on your client. Like, I just had my one client send me a message like a week or two ago. We got to the end of our project. They sent me the most nice, heartfelt message I ever received from a client. And they mentioned in it how seamless the process was. And that was really the moment for me where I was like, okay, the hard work is paying off. People are noticing. It is getting a reaction, and it is a positive reaction. That's going to be the same thing. You know, they're going to tell people about you. They're going to tell their friends. They're going to share their awesome experience because you took the time to not only have unreasonable hospitality and go above and beyond in certain avenues, you also focused on making it a seamless process for your client and kind of guiding them through this whole journey where it felt like you were kind of leading them the whole way. They didn't feel lost. They didn't feel left alone. They didn't feel left in the dark. You know, those kind of feelings generate fear and uncertainty. You want to always make sure you're kind of leading with a lamp in hand so they know at any given turn, you're right there in front of them, you know, you're leading the way, and they're going to get to the destination safely. So that's kind of why I really wanted to focus on Notion and my systems overall.
You are Gandalf, your client is Frodo.
Exactly.
You are guiding them through the entire process. And that's great because it can be a really overwhelming thing if you're a business owner. I imagine you're hiring a designer for the first time. Like when I hired my first music producer for the first time, I didn't know what to ask for. I didn't know what to tell them. But they made it a really seamless process, like going like, okay, so we're going to first go over your ideas and we're going to have like, you know, a mood board similar to what I do with them. And they were like with my clients. And then they were like, okay, well, after that mood board and that initial thing, we're going to start, you know, doing some samples, recording some stuff. I'm going to have you read over those and you can like literally, she put it into a software where I could literally make write little notes at different timestamps, just give her like notes on her pitch and stuff. And I'm like, wow, I don't even know about music, and I'm learning more as I'm going. So like in putting them into a portal where everything's user friendly and making it simple. And the big takeaway for me for this is make lists, because for me, when I'm getting stuff done, I have ADHD. Okay, I make lists for everything. And if you're showing them like you're painting a clear picture of what this will look like when it's done and what all the steps are there for them, it just completely eliminates any confusion. And what you said about the hiccup, if you have any uncertainty, you don't want to do that. You don't want to even begin to diminish their trust. So that's the bottom line there, is make it as easy as possible for them, guide them through the process. And I think that they'll AI hopefully will not ever be able to do that, because that is the most human thing you can do. So
exactly.
yeah.
And I think that that's really where it started to make a big difference, was just, I looked at it and I was like, if I'm confused with my process, obviously my client is going to be too. And initially, like my first year in business, there is no way that you're going to have a perfect process as soon as you start. The only way that you're going to get near a perfect process, and the reality of the matter is it's never going to be perfect. It's always going to be evolving. It's always going to be changing. You're always going to be doing things that's going to make it better. But you have to start somewhere. Like my initial process this time last year when I was working with clients, it was messy and it was confusing and they didn't understand the client portal. I didn't understand the client portal. I had the information organized in a way that it was like confusing to look at, and it was like endless lists, and I couldn't like condense information into nice steps. So it was really tough for them to understand like where we're going, what is next. I'm looking at this big scary list and it's overwhelming me. So it took me a lot of time to kind of refine it and dial it in. And actually, it's funny, at a certain point, I started to give my client portals like software versions, like on your iPhone when you get like a software update and it's like 6.2.10. I kind of started to add that to my client portals, so that way I know what software update I'm on. And it gives me incentive that every time I'm in the client portal and I think, oh, this could be made better, I make myself a little task to revise it. And then I just add that bullet point. And when I get 10 bullet points on that task, I take a day and I go through and I add everything. And then I say, this is the next version. You know, you're always going to be changing it. You're always going to be improving it. That's really important to remember. It's not going to be static like the first time that you establish it, but it's going to help really guide them long term. And it's really important to kind of like, you have to take the time to understand your process. Sometimes this is an oversight, kind of like our personal branding. We're like, we're so busy with client work, we can't do our own personal branding. You know, we don't have time for that. But it's really important to take the time to work on your systems, work on your personal brand, because these really are going to be the things, along with Unreasonable Hospitality, that really help set you apart, that really help make the difference, and that help make you like have a lasting impression on people.
Yes, that's great stuff. In Unreasonable Hospitality, he talks about later in the book, it's called the Dreamweaver department. So he actually made the physical user experience of the guest going to play out, like step by step. What feeling do we want to convey to them? What way do we want them to walk? And not just for physical installations like Disney, but for, you know, a design or a branding experience that people are going to see through, whether it's through a user interface on an app or it's through just, you know, the general look of a brand that we're developing that has packaging and or whatnot. You know, how do we want them to read the box of cookies that we're designing? Really fun to do, by the way. If you've ever done like snacks and stuff, they're really fun to design, and cases of beer and stuff like that. Like, and you do like the can and the beer. Anyway, that's just a really fun project. But yeah, so Will literally decided that he was going to make an entire department in his restaurant called the Dreamweaver department, where, kind of similar to the hot dog story, he would hire people from all these different walks of life. Like, it was really interesting. I think the one lady might have been an interior designer or something like that, but he just thought that she kind of had the eye for this, to like of thinking on the spot based off of the context of what these customers and these guests are like, and thinking of ways that they can just like really give them something cool that they can remember. So they actually had people that were on that team that they would send out to go shop for anything that was needed for it. If they were going to make a craft or something like that. Like for example, this one family, this warms my heart. This was towards the end of the book. There was a family that really, they were from, I think, Asia or something like that. They didn't speak a whole lot of English, but they had a really good time in New York City. They had never really seen a lot of, snowy climates before, and they wanted to go out and sled in Central Park. And so they Will sent people from the Dreamweaver department to go buy sleds for this family, and then they escorted them in a limo to go to Central Park, and the restaurant staff took them sledding. Like, you get 5 million gold stars for doing something like that. You know what I mean? And even though like that would have been a more resource intensive example than the hot dog example, the lifelong impression is there no matter what. So I think I think we went over a lot of really good ways that we can incorporate that. And yeah, as AI advances everything, it's both exciting and terrifying. I think that that's the way that we can always differentiate ourselves, is because at the end of the day, we are experience creators. We aren't product creators. Artists never get burnt out by creating art. Artists get burnt out by creating content. But we're not just content creators. We're not just content creation machines. We're curators. We are bringing experiences to life. But yeah, that's something that will always differentiate us as designers, and that's just something to really keep us on our toes, as the world continues to inevitably progress. And it's exciting to know that we can always have that connection with our clients, because over time I feel like as things become more accessible, people will be wanting that more. People will start to really lose that when you can create anything just with templates, because at the end of the day, using AI and using a prompt and stuff like that it's really fun to toy around with at first, but then it's just like it gets boring, because it's just like you can make, there you go, you have it, what you asked for, the instant gratification is granted, but it's just missing something. And people, I think that like the more accessible that becomes, they'll be kind of yearning for that, and they'll be wanting branding and design that goes far beyond just a surface level of here it is.
I really love that last example that you gave with the sledding. I think that is an exceptional example of, we really are looking for lasting memories. I feel like we're coming to a point where the quick earthly pleasures of having money or having status or having fame are starting to fade. As we're facing this wave of AI, we're starting to realize like that stuff really doesn't matter. And I think people are starting to crave these deeper connections, these human connections, these memories. Like, I think it's so much more important to be able to go out and experience the world and unplug from technology and go see the sights and make these lasting memories, because that really is what matters most. And I think that is an exceptional example of that. And that's really kind of where we're moving, is like people want that personal connection. They want lasting memories. They want to feel like you're actually having somewhat of like a relationship, like a close personal relationship with these people. They're your friends. You always want to keep things professional when it comes to clients, but also don't forget they're people too. They're also business owners. They're also parents or brothers or sisters. A lot of my clients kind of share with me their plans for Memorial Day, or they tell me about what their family's up to, or a vacation that they went on. And these are really the moments that kind of make us human, that we can connect with one another and really just kind of make these memories, make the world a better place. And I'm really excited that we can continue to do that as humans and as creatives. And that's something that AI will never be able to take away from us. So it was really great getting to chat with you. I loved all of your advice and insight and industry experience and everything like that. It was awesome to have you on the show. I hope you had a good time as well, and I will catch everybody in the next episode. Thanks so much for tuning into this one, guys. Bye.
Bye.